So today you're learning how to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula, and yesterday you learned how to find the value of the discriminant to figure out how many roots you'll have, but today we'll actually figure out what the roots or the solutions would be. And so what you're finding here, it'll be the solutions, it'll be where your graph would cross the x-axis is what you're finding when you do the quadratic formula. And so you also learned how to graph them last week, but so the closest you could get for some of those was if it crossed between two numbers, like if it was between 1 and 2. I mean, the most you could say was between 1 and 2 because you couldn't tell the exact value. But using this method will give you the exact value. So remember, so these are the solutions of your quadratic equation. So it'll be in the form of y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And then, so you'll use your quadratic formula here. And so, like it says, you can't take the square root of a negative number. So if your equation gives you a negative number under the square root, then you'll have no solutions, which you kind of learned about yesterday when you learned about the discriminant. Because, if you have a negative number, then you wouldn't have any roots. You wouldn't even have to do the rest of your formula, but we'll talk more about that later on. But remember, so this is your whole formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. And that'll be given to each time. And then, so you're going to find your discriminant first. And so like we said before, so that'll be your value that's under your square root symbol then, which is also called a radical sign. And then, so remember, so your discriminant is the b squared minus 4ac part. And so if you get a positive number for the discriminant, then you'll have two roots. If you get 0, you'll have one root. If you have a negative number, you wouldn't have any roots. And so like before, you want to make sure all your terms are on the same side to start, which means for this first one, so these are already. So then you can go ahead and label them as A, B, and C next. So remember, so the A is the covenant here, x squared terms. Here your A will be 2. And then your B will be 9 because it's the coefficient of your x term. And then your C will be 4. And then you'll do the b squared minus 4ac first to make sure you have roots, because if not, you wouldn't have to do the rest here. So you can sub these in. So b squared minus 4ac, so it'll be 9 squared. And then minus 4 times your a here, which is 2, and then times your c, which is 4. And then you can just evaluate here. So you can type that in if you want. So it'd be 81 minus 32, which will give you 49 there then for your discriminant. So that means, so since you had a positive, that means you'll have two roots. And then now it's just a matter of subbing your values in. So in your formula here, so we're going to go ahead and write this out by subbing them in. So it'll be x is equal to, and so you have negative b. So your b here is 9, so it'd be negative 9. And then plus or minus, I'll tell you what that means in a second. We'll just write it for now. Plus, minus, and then it's the square root of. And the reason we found our discriminant first is because you got 49 for this part here. That's just going right under your square root symbol here, the radical, because you already figured out that part. And then this will all be divided by 2a. So I'm just going to go ahead and multiply them together instead of leaving both terms there. So 2 times your a, so 2 times 2. So that'll be 4 then. So for now, so you have negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 49 all divided by 4 here. So pretty much now that you have this, it's just a matter of typing this in to get your two solutions, because it'll have two roots here because you had a 49. So that was positive. So you'll have the two roots. So when you go to type it in, so you can type it in using Desmos, or if you still have your graphing calculator, you can do that too. But I'll show you how to type this in. So when you do this here, so once you click on the Desmos link, so then you can type it in. So you're going to do -9 plus the square root of 49 divided by 4, and then you'll go through and subtract it instead, because you'll do both of these, but we'll take care of the plus first. So you can type that in there. So you can do -9 plus the square root of 49 first then. And remember, you can get the square root symbol by clicking down here. Hold on, I can't figure out how to get this thing to go away. Okay, so then you'll have the square root of 49. Okay, and then you're dividing that. So you can look back here. So then you're dividing all that by 4 then. So what you can do here is you can highlight, because if you type divided by 4, it'll just divide your last term by the 4, which is not what you want. You want to divide your whole top part by the 4. So you can highlight this here, and then you can type the division symbol here. So you can divide it by 4 then. So that means, so your first solution here is -0.5 then. So you can go ahead and write that down. So that means, so one of your solutions will be -0.5. And then, because we added it, and then we're going to just go through and subtract it. You can also just go through and change what you already had here, actually. Because everything else is the same, you're just going to add and subtract it after. So then your other root or solution would be -4. And then, so those would be your two roots or solutions there then. So -0.5, then -4. So that's how you can type it in using the Desmos graphing calculator. So you can type it in if you have your Casio calculator still. Just know when you use the Casio, so when you type it in, you would do -9 plus the square root of 49. You'll have to press equals before you divide by the 4. You couldn't type it on at once, or else it'll give you the wrong answer, because you want it to divide this whole thing by the 4. So if you use the Casio, you'll type the numerator and just make sure you press equals before you divide. And then for your next one here, so remember, so you want to make sure all your terms are on the same side to start. So you should subtract the 144, and then you can figure out the A, B, and C. So 4t squared minus 144 equals 0. And then you can figure out the A, B, and C. So A is the coefficient of your x squared term. So here there are t's, but so your A will be 4 then. And then B is the coefficient of your x term, the one by itself. You don't have any regular t's here, so your B will be 0 then. And then your C is the constant, the number by itself, so -144. And then you can do the discriminant next, the b squared minus 4ac. So your b here is 0, so you can sum in. So 0 squared minus 4 times your a, which is 4, and then times the c, which is -144. So if you do this here, I'm just going to leave this at the top so you can use it for the rest of the page. So the value of your discriminant, if you type this in here, then you'll get 2,304 for the discriminant. So that's what you got there, which means you'll have two roots, two solutions there. So you can work out the rest. And then, so we're out front, so it's -b. So here you'll have negative, if you look at your formula here, so -b plus or minus the square root of your discriminant there. So here you have -b, which is -0. You can put it doesn't really matter. because 0, negative 0 be the same. Okay, so 0 plus or minus your discriminant there, which is the 2,304 we got. And then remember, you'll divide by 2a. So I'll just go ahead and multiply them together there. So 2 times your a, so 2 times 4, so that'd be 8. And then now this one is like the others there. So now it's just a matter of typing this into your 2 solutions then, or the 2 roots. So now I can type it in. So you can go back here if you want. You can clear this out if you want, or you can just change them to the new numbers. So we'll do the numerator first. So 0 plus the square root of 2304. And then somewhere you can highlight the whole thing, and then you can use the division symbol. So you're dividing all that by 8 then. So that means, so your first root or solution would be 6. That means it will cross that positive 6 for one of them. So I'm going to write x equals 6 here. And then you'll have to go through and do 0 minus the square root of 2304, and then divide it by 8. So you can just change this to a minus if you want there. And then, so to recalculate your other root there. So then your other root here will be negative 6. So it's 6 and negative 6 for this one. And so since you got positive negative 6, you could also see your answer like this, like with one of each, positive negative 6, or both of the roots there. And then for the next one here, so remember, you want to make sure all your terms are on the same side first. So you should subtract the 9y first there then. And then, so I'm going to write this like in your regular trinomial form, the quadratics. So you have 2y squared, and then your regular y being x, so minus 9y minus 3 equals 0. And then you can figure out the a, b, and c. So your a here will be 2, and then your b will be the coefficient of your regular term, so negative 9, and then your c will be the negative 3. And then you can find the value of your discriminant next. So it's b squared minus 4ac. So you're squaring the b first. So your b here is negative 9, but it's a negative, so just make sure you put it in parentheses before you square it. So it's b squared minus 4 times your a, just 2. And then times your c, which is negative 3. And then you can just evaluate it here to get your discriminant then. So if you do this here, so you'll get 105. So you got a positive number here, so that means you'll have 2 roots. And that means you can go ahead and work out the rest of it then, since you'll have 2 roots. And then you can just sub your values in. So now, so in your formula, so you'll have, so it's x is equal to, so in your formula, so it's negative b plus or minus the square root of your discriminant there. So here, your b is negative 9, but you want a negative b. So pretty much the sign of that'll change. It'll be positive 9 when you sub it in. Because if it was a positive, it turned negative, but it was a negative, it turned positive. So we 9 plus or minus the square root of your discriminant, which you already got. So that's 105. That's done for you. And then it's divided by 2a on the bottom. So 2 times your a, so 2 times 2, so that would be 4. So it'd be 9 plus or minus the square root of 105, all divided by 4. So you can just type this in to get it. So so we can do the addition part first. So 9 plus the square root of 105. And then, so remember, so you can highlight the whole numerator and then you're dividing out by 4. So this will be your first root here. I'm going to round to the nearest hundredths place here. So I'll just say 4.81 for the first one. Okay, so one of these will be 4.81. And then you can go through and change it to a minus to get your second solution. And then this will be your other one. So, and then I'm going to round to the nearest hundredths place again. So 2 numbers after your decimal point. So this one wouldn't round that one up. So it'll just be negative 0.31 for your second solution. And so those will be your 2 roots or solutions. That's where it will cross your x-axis there. And so like I was saying before with the Casios, so you'll have to type the numerator, just make sure you press equals before you divide by 4. And then you'll have to like retype 9 minus the square root of 105 equals and divide by 4 there. And then for number 4, so you want to make sure all your terms are on the same side. So you want to move these 2 over here. So you can subtract the 3m squared and you can add the 21. And then you can add the 21 here too. So negative 4m squared minus 3m squared, so that'd be negative 7m squared. You still have your plus m. And then you can do negative 17 plus 21. So that'd be positive 4 then. And then you can just go ahead and label the A, B, and C. So A will be negative 7. Your B will be 1, the coefficient of your x term, the one by itself, and then your C will be 4 then. And then you can sub them in next. So you're doing the discriminant first. So B squared minus 4AC. So your B here is 1, so be 1 squared minus 4 times the A, which is negative 7. I'm just going to put in parentheses to make it easier. Times negative 7, and then times your C, which is 4. And then you can type this in, it'll probably be easier. So if you do here, so if you do type this in, so you'll get 112 then for discriminant. So it means you'll have 2 roots, and you can work out the rest. So in your formula, so it's negative b, so your b here was 1. So we'll write out this thing. Okay, so x equals, so it's negative b out front. So be negative 1 once you sub it in. And then plus or minus the square root of your discriminant, so the 112. And then you'll divide by 2a. So 2 times your a. So 2 times a, that 2 times negative 7, so that'd be negative 14 there then. And then it's just a matter of getting your 2 solutions then. So you can go ahead and type it in. So we'll do the plus first. So negative 1 plus the square root of 112. And then you can highlight the whole thing. And then you can divide by, what's our denominator? Negative 14. That means, so one of your roots will be, so we're around, we can do the nearest hundredths place here. So negative, so the 4 wouldn't round the 8 up. So I'll just do negative 0.68 for the first one. And then you can go through and change it to minus to get your second one then. So in your second, so, and then if you round to the nearest hundredth place here, so the 7 would round the 2 up. So it'll be 0.83 then for that one. So that's where that one would cross your x-axis then. For number 5 here, so all your terms are on the same side. So I will go ahead and figure out A, B, and C to start then. So your A is the coefficient of your x squared term here. So that'd be -1. And then your B is the coefficient of your x term. So that'd be 1 in front of the P. And then your C is -14. And then, so you can do the discriminant. So B squared minus 4AC. So you can sub in. So B squared. So your B is 1. So 1 squared minus 4 times your A, which is -1, and then times the -14. So 1 squared minus 4 times -1 times -14. So if you do this here, so you can type it in if you want, this will be -55 for discriminant. So for this one here, because you had a negative number, that means you wouldn't have any roots here at all. Because remember this, the discriminant is what number is under your square root symbol, and you couldn't take the square root of a negative number. So that means this one, you wouldn't have any roots, it wouldn't cross at all. That means it would look something like this. It wouldn't cross your x-axis. So this would be no solution for this one then. And then for your next one here, so you want to make sure all your terms on the same side. So you can move all 3 of these over there or move these 2. I'll just move all these over there. It doesn't really matter either way. Either way, it doesn't matter which way you go, the roots and the n will be the same, even though it may look a little different, the numbers you're subbing in. So here, so you can subtract the 4x squared here then. And then subtract the 4x. And then you can subtract the 1. So 5x squared minus 4x squared, so that'd be 1x squared then. And then for the x's, so -6x minus 4x, so you move there. So that'd be -10x between those. And then you'll have your -1 there. And then you can go ahead and label your A, B, and C then there. So your A is the coefficient of your x squared term, so that'd be a 1. And then your B is the coefficient of the x term, so -10. And then your C will be -1. And then you can find the discriminant first. So that one's B squared minus 4AC. So your B here is -10. So you can sub that one in and square it for the discriminant to start. So -10 squared. And then -4 times your A, which is 1. And then times your C, which is -1. So you can evaluate here to get your discriminant. So this will be 100 and then minus -4. So you'll get 104 for your discriminant then. So since you got a positive here, you'll have 2 roots and you can keep working out. You may notice more often than not, you'll actually have 2 roots. Only every now and then would it be like 1 or no roots there. So you got a 104, so that means you can do the rest of it here. So you can just sub them in your formula now. So it's x is equal to, so your formula is negative b. So here your b is -10, so when you sub it in, it'll be a positive 10 out front. So be 10 plus or minus the discriminant you got under the square root there. And then in your denominator, so it's 2 times your a, so 2 times 1, so that'd be 2. And then you can just type this in. So 10 plus the square root of 104 first. and then you're dividing it by 2. So that means, whoops, hold on, that didn't go in the right place, did it? It means, so one of your roots, so we're still doing the nearest hundreds place. So 2 numbers after the decimal point. So you can look at the 9 here, and so that 9 would round it up. So that would round that up, which would then round that. So it'd be 10.10 for the first root there. And then you can do 10 minus the square root next to get your second root. Okay, so this will be your second root. And we're rounding to the nearest hundredth place too. So 2 numbers after the decimal point, so you can look there. So your 9 after it would round your 9 up, which would round that up. So this would be negative 0.1 or 0.10 like the other one kind of. Because the others in turn round them up. And this was negative, I think, wasn't it? Yeah. So negative 0.1 or 10 doesn't really matter there. And then, so for your last one here, so you want to make sure all your terms are on the same side first. So you should cancel out the negative 144. So you'll have to add it to start then. That way they'll be on the same side. Okay, so x squared minus 12x plus 144 equals 0. And then you can figure out the a, b, and c. So your a is the coefficient of your x squared term. So here your a will be 1. And then your b is the coefficient of your x term, so negative 12. And then your c is the constant, so that'd be 144. And then you can find your discriminant next. So b squared minus 4ac. I was trying to erase that, but okay. So you're doing b squared minus 4ac here then. So your b here that you can sub in is negative 12. So you should put it in parentheses where it's negative 12 squared minus 4 times your a, which is 1, and then times your c, which is 144. Okay, sorry, I'm going to change this problem here because I want this to work out the way that I want it to show you something. There's one thing we haven't done yet. Okay, so sorry, I'm going to change this negative 12x. I'm going to change your original problem. Okay, so this will, you can write this, sorry. It was because doing it that way, you wouldn't see it. Okay, so you'll have x squared. This is for the original, and then minus 24x, and then equals negative 144. So that's your original, sorry. So, and so this is what you have in your note sheet. I just forgot to change where I started working them out here to show you. So it says the correct thing in your notes. I just had to change in the video here. So for this one, it'll be like the others. You should make sure all your terms are on the same side to start, which means you should add the 144 then. So it means you'll have x squared minus 24x plus 144 equals 0. And then now that they're on the same side, you'll figure out the a, b, and c. So your a is the coefficient of your x squared terms. Here that'd be a 1 then. And then your b is the coefficient of your x terms. That'd be negative 24 for that one. And then your c be 144. And then you should find your discriminant next there. So it's b squared minus 4ac. So your b here is negative 24. Just make sure you put in parentheses 4 squared. So negative 24 squared minus 4 times your a, which is 1, and then times the 144. So if you do this here, you'll get, so it's negative 24 squared minus 4 times 1 times 144. So if you evaluate here, this will give you 0 then for your discriminant. So because you got 0 here, remember way back up here, so since you got 0 under your for your discriminant, then you'll have 1 root, and I'll show you how that works. So that means you'll sub in the rest of your values to evaluate to figure out what the 1 root would be. So in your formula, so remember, it'll be x is equal to, and then, so it's negative b out front. So here, so you're subbing your b in. So you have negative 24, so that would turn it positive, so it'd be 24. And then it'd be plus or minus the square root of your discriminant, which is 0 here. And then you'll divide by 2a, so 2 times 1, so that'd be 2 down there. So the reason this will only be 1 root here is because if you add the square root of 0 or if you subtract it, it will be the same. It doesn't really matter actually there. So I'll just type the plus in first. You can do 24 plus the square root of 0. And then you can divide all that by 2. So that means, so your root will be 12 there, your solution or 0 or the root. And then even if you went through and changed this to do a minus for the other one, it would still be 12. It wouldn't change anything at all because adding or subtracting the square root of 0 would just stay the same. So that means for this one, your only root here is 12. That means this is like the double root you learned about before. That means it would touch and then come right back up, kind of like this here, something like that. Okay, so you're gonna work through these. Just make sure you're doing the discriminant part first, because if you get a positive number, then you'll have 2 roots and you can work out the rest. If you get a negative, you wouldn't have any roots and it'd be no solution. You don't have the rest of the problem to do. And then like this one here, if you get a 0, you'll have 1 root and you can sub in the rest of them there. So you're gonna work out this stuff and just let me know if you get stuck on anything though.